Okay, let's do it again. So we have 4 banim. The Haggadah is going to speak about 4 children who make their way into the Haggadah and to your Pesach Seder table. And they are Chacham, the wise child, Rasha, the not good child, Tam, the simple, Enodeh Lishol, the one who does not know how to ask questions. These are the 4 children who make their way to the Pesach Seder. Let's discuss them because they feature very early on in the Haggadah. And why do we even bring up kids? We don't bring them up in Sukkah or Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. Why are we suddenly finding 4 types of children? And very importantly, why is there not a 5th child? Although I think someone spoke here, there's a guy called David Mamet who spoke here. I've seen signs around the school that he's speaking here or spoke here.
Yeah, there was a little...
Was it on already? He actually wrote a book called The 5th Child based upon this, weirdly enough. And maybe that's why I asked him to speak, right? It's actually a very, very interesting book, and he's an interesting character. He's a playwright and movie maker. Okay, so we're going to talk about a 5th child as well, because that actually comes from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. We'll see that in a minute. Yeah? Lamen tipesh. Because you have enough tipshim. So that's why is no one stupid? Okay.
Does that mean the last one is a satum or yeled?
Yeled. Kol yeledim.
You don't have also kind. No, but tipesh...
Okay, so these are 4 ways of learning. No, she's asking a question. Why is there not a child called an idiot? We all know kids are idiots, let's be honest. Okay, let's go through who these are, and then we'll see why it's limited to these 4 and not 5. Okay? So what is a chacham? What is a chacham? What does that word mean? More than me. I'm a chacham. I was in the Israeli army for 3 years.
No. It's recording.
Oh, sorry. What's the secret? You walked around Israel with green fatigues for her. Maza chacham. Seriously, what is a wise person? What other words are there for smart people? For smart people. You have people with, there's chachma, there's chochma. What else is there? There's chochma. There's what you say? There's bina. There is da'at. Da'at, which by the way, this is the word Chabad comes from. Chabad, Lubavitch, it comes from this. Chochma, bina, da'at. These are 3 different forms of understanding, of knowledge. Chochma is, listen, there's no good English translation. We're going to call it wisdom, and I'm going to show you why in a second. Wisdom. Bina is understanding, but a better word is intuition. Intuition is a much better word for bina. Da'at is knowledge, just general knowledge. So it's different forms of understanding. There are people of knowledge who don't have chokhmah, who aren't very wise, yeah? Right. Many people have lots of knowledge, they know a lot of stuff, but they act like idiots because they are lacking chokhmah and bina. There are people who have chokhmah, wisdom, and maybe don't know everything. They don't have much knowledge. So each of them are mutually exclusive. Right? So that's why Lubavitch say you've got to have all 3. Chokhmah, bina, and da'at. Obviously they try to combine it. But this is a general idea and a general rule. So what exactly is chokhmah? So chokhmah, interestingly, actually made up of 2 words. What 2 words appear in the word chokhmah? What 2 words appear in the word chokhmah? Yes, Sarah.
Is it kama how?
Ma is what. Kama is how much, actually, you're right. Which may be related. So it's actually 2 words and they're going this. One goes like this and one goes like this. They're like going opposite directions, but they're put together. What is this word? Koach. What's koach? Power, strength. What's ma? What? Chokhmah, wisdom, comes from the power of what? The power of what? What does the power of what mean? Power of asking questions. The power of questions. So we know that wisdom comes from asking questions and learning. Da'at comes from knowledge. You have to ask. We just read, memorize information. Right? In schools, as children, what do they make us do the whole time? They give us knowledge. They didn't give us too much chokhmah, because in my school, you asked a question, you got a zetz, right, from the Rebbe, which I got plenty of, unfortunately. Right? Believe me, I deserve most of them. Right, so that's chokhmah. That's chokhmah. Chokhmah is the power of asking questions. So that means, how do you become wise? by asking and learning from other people. That is the secret of chokhmah, of being a wise person. We see that over here. He's called a chacham. He's not called a ben bina, although women, by the way, are famous for having bina. Nemi, could you close the door, please? Right, that's bina. That's an inner intuition. Dat is knowledge, having information inside you that comes from reading books. Right? If I told you, I met a great doctor, he read, thousands of books on, but he never practiced and never learned from another teacher, you wouldn't trust him or her. Because chokhmah, wisdom, even as a knowledge source, it needs to come from learning from other people. So the chacham, this child, is considered the best. What does this child do? He asks a question. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He asks very respectfully, what are we doing over here? Ma kol hachukim va'idid. What are all these mitzvot that we have in front of us at the Pesach Seder? So interestingly, the smartest of all four, the chacham, doesn't have answers, he has questions. The smartest of all the four children that we talk about doesn't have the answers, has questions. Right? This obviously, is what the idea of manishtana. We make the children ask questions. So that's number one. Yes, more.
It reminds me of a thing I've heard that if you ask not a really smart person, do you know a lot? He will say yes, I know a lot. And if you ask a really smart person, do you know a lot? He said no, I don't know.
Very, very good. They say the more you know, the less you know. And I always thought, what does that mean, the more you know, the less you know? It doesn't make sense. So the answer is because if I told you there's a lot of information out there and you have enough knowledge to know there's a lot more to learn, then the more you realize you don't know. Yeah. So the more you know, the more you realize you do not know. Very, very good. Why is the Rasha over here? Why is the Rasha? Assuming this is in a certain order. The order over here is very important. The order over here is very, very important. It's not just a random order the rabbis put these four types of children into. What is the Rasha? What makes him to the Rasha?
He asks questions, but he doesn't want to know the answer.
He asks questions. Why would he ask a question if he doesn't want to know the answer? What kind? Very good. So the answer is he's very cynical. He also asks questions, but his questions are not because he wants the answer, as those people ask questions because they want to make a statement. Right? And he's very cynical and he's, what's the word? Dismissive. No, rhetorical is, okay, so maybe it's rhetorical a little bit, but it's more of a, rhetorical is, I'm asking a question, well, I know the answer, we all know the answer. This is, I don't want to know the answer, I'm making a statement. Matose. Someone says that, they don't want to know the answer. Right? Mach batlach. There's no answer to that. Right? It's just dumb. Just asking questions in order to be, exactly, lachis. So that's the Rasha. He asks the question, he goes, Mazot, kol chukim, what are you doing over here? Okay? So the Haggadah doesn't kick this kid out, doesn't throw him away. What does he do? The Haggadah says, I'll tell you, we cut his teeth, which is a metaphor for we bring him down a little bit. We bring him down, and we're like, you know what? Had you had this attitude in Egypt, you wouldn't have got out. This attitude is not a way to become part of our people. That's what the Haggadah says. It treats him harshly. But, interestingly, he's right after the Chacham. Interesting. So he's not the worst of all the four. We're going to assume this is a descending order of knowledge base. So even the Rasha, we give him an answer. We don't ignore him, we don't kick him out. We're like, here's an answer for you. If you want it, you can take it. What comes next? The Tam. The Tam, he also has a question. What's his question? Ma zot. What is this? What does zeh mean? We said last class. What does zeh or zot always mean? Someone's pointing. What's he pointing at? Well, what's on the Pesach Seder table? Ashley, what's there?
The Seder plate?
The Seder plate. And the kara. And the matzah. He's like, what's this? So he's simple. He's not angry. He just doesn't know what it is.
What is there to be simple? Like you're in the house.
Of knowledge. Simple in terms of his knowledge of what it is to be Jewish. That's what it's referring to. What's the last level that we have? It may not be the last level. It's not actually. This is only 4. But en yodea lishol. What's that? This is the child who is so far removed that they don't even know that there is such a thing called a question. They are completely oblivious to anything Jewish. They're just barely hanging on. Eno yodeh l'shol. What do we do with this child? We ask the question for the child. We feed him or her the question, and then we answer it. We don't be like, oh, you don't even know this question to be asked. At least the Tam, at least he knows mazeh. This one doesn't even recognize what a matzah looks like. Doesn't know what a shofar is. This is the child who is so far gone. So these are actually descending orders. According to the order, the Chacham is great, although he has no answers, but he has questions, and he wants to learn. He's inquisitive. Right? Yodeh l'shol. V'rotzeh l'dat ma kara. Eno yodeh l'shol is the worst. Doesn't even have a question. Doesn't even have a question. So I'll share with you a very famous idea once I will come to both of you. So I'm going to finish this off. And we'll take your understandings. The Lubavitch Rebbe said something very, very profound. A very famous idea. Probably the most famous ideas, definitely on Pesach, from the Lubavitch Rebbe. Zecher Tzaddik Levracha. He says like this. He says, these 4 children, the Chacham, the wise, the Rasha, the evil, the Tam, the simple, and the Lishol, are not just 4 types of children. They are 4 generations. 4 generations. You have let's do it like this. The great-grandfather or mother, the grandfather or grandmother, the father, and the child. These are the 4 generations. You're going through 4 generations. And by this is based upon an idea that you have 4 generations to be involved in Torah, and it'll make sense when I explain it to you in order to keep the whole Jewish thing going. You heard this idea before? No. It's a very profound idea. He says, look at the generations that turn up in a new country. He gives an example. Right? You come, every single Jewish person you talk to today who affiliates Jewishly always has a great-grandfather or great-grandmother who was a rabbi or a big tzedeket. Everyone, my great-grandfather was a rabbi of Morocco, of Yemen, of Persia, a big tzaddik. My great-grandmother used to say Tehillim all day. She was so tznuah. Everyone's got a story. And I'm telling you, it must be that way, because if they weren't like that, they wouldn't have great-grandchildren who would still be affiliated. So it makes sense. There's this 4 generational lapse. So they come. Unfortunately, they get to the new country, and the child, who's the grandfather, rebels. They're like, what are you doing? This is so old. We're in the new country now. We don't need all this Torah mitzvah. I'm a businessman, a businesswoman. I got a life. I don't need it. They rebel. They're rebelling against their parents. So they were present in their parents' home. They know who they are. But they're like, Mazda, what are you doing? This is so old. This is like 1850. Lo akhpat li, lo ma'nyan oti. I'm not involved. I'm not interested. Now the next comes the Tam. If this Rasha does not fix their ways, you become the Tam. Now the Tam has a rebellious father or mother. But they remember the grandparents. Most people have a relationship or knowledge of their grandparents. They have this. They're able to connect. There's one generation that didn't. After the Holocaust, most Jews did not even meet a grandparent. Right? If you walked around after the Holocaust, be like, do you have a grandparent? They were not Jewish because they lost their grandparents. Right? That's just the way it was. So that entire generation were completely lost. So the Tam remembers their grandfather. So they remember, yeah, he mentioned something about matzah and shofar and tefillah. It's in my memory. My father never brought me up like this because he's the Rasha. So the Tam is 2 generations away from the Chacham, but at least they're in the zone. At least they're there. You know what I'm saying? But if the Tam doesn't fix their education, their knowledge, their chokhmah, bina, dat, they're going to have a child who is eno yodeh l'shol. Why is this child doesn't even have to ask questions? Because their parent, unfortunately, is a Tam. Right? He has questions, but he's completely ignorant. Their grandfather, they remember, grandmother rebelled. And most people, unfortunately, don't remember their great-grandparents. They hear stories from their grandparent about their parent. And for most people, those are good stories. Right? You bring your grandparents to the Pesach Seder, they're like, oh, I remember when I was a kid, back in Poland, back in Yonkers, right? Back in Syria, I remember they're connected, but they never met. Most people did not meet their great-grandparents. Right? I barely know my great-grandparents' names. So they're completely gone. So Eden Lishol is at the table, but is barely there because they don't have much to go on. Their parents and grandparents weren't affiliated, and they're hearing secondhand stories about their great-grandparent. Which takes us to a last question, which is, why is there no fifth child at the Pesach Seder? That's the famous question of the Lubavitch Rebbe. He said, why is there no fifth child? Where is the fifth child? Oh, they're alive.
They're not Jewish.
They may be Jewish. Maybe they're not Jewish, by the way, like the Jewish people in Egypt who just disconnected, but they're gone. Why are they gone? Because their grandparent was the Tam. Got nothing. Great-grandparent is a Rasha. So they've completely assimilated, they are completely unaffiliated, and they don't make it to the Pesach Seder, which is why the Lubavitch Rebbe used to say, he was one of the first ones that did this, to give him great credit, he was a great tzaddik, you have to go out, get the fifth son, and bring them to the Pesach Seder table. You get it? That's the idea of outreach. Right? You're basically, what we're doing is, we're getting, if they were one of the four, at least they're there. They could be rebellious, cynical, angry, idiot, tipesh. Right? They're at the table. But this one is so unaffiliated, they don't even make it. You've got to go outside, find the fifth son or the fifth daughter, the fifth child, and schlep them to the Pesach Seder table. That's the idea, he says, of the fifth child. And that's that book, actually, called The Fifth Son, I think, by this guy David Mamet. I think spoke it last night, yeah.
He said it goes in a certain order, but what I don't understand is, like, wouldn't it be the worst of the Rasha? Because he made...
Great question. Noah's asking a great question. The Rasha is the one who broke the chain, right? It was all Chacham, it was all going good. And this Rasha turns up and like... So I asked that question many years ago. And I heard an answer, and now I understand the answer. And the answer is the Rasha. People who rebel or are they're involved. They're angry and cynical, but they're there. They're asking. There's a room, there's a petach, there's space to give an answer and get them back. It's like when I do marriage counseling and they're angry with each other, I know there's a chance you can fix it. If they're not speaking for 6 months, I'm like, it's done. But it's so peaceful, they're not even speaking, there's no shouting or arguing. There's nothing there. At least with the Rasha, there's anger, frustration. We have a chance to make something happen. Then it's there. It just rebelled because they went through challenges, difficulties, I don't know, Holocaust, the bad rabbi, I've heard it all. Everyone's got an excuse. Everyone's got an excuse not to be affiliated. It's not me, it's the Charedim in Israel. It's not me, it's the rabbi who's there. It's not me, something bad. There's always some excuse people come up with, right? But at least that person has got a way to come back. They say, the opposite of hate, opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. The opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. Right? The fifth child's apathetic, they're just not there. Most Jews are just not there. Although, interestingly, when it comes to Pesach Seder, most Jews do some form of Pesach Seder, right? Some form of it, yeah.
I know that this whole concept of the fifth child by the Rebbe is like the person who doesn't attend the Seder, but it also has like, it divides in three. Like the one that doesn't have a place to go, the one that doesn't care, and the one that is unaware of Pesach. So my question is, why is the second the type that doesn't care? If that could be like...
Who's the second?
The one that doesn't care.
What doesn't care? You trying to say the Rasha, you trying to say?
I'm saying, why is that part of the three? And we know that the person that is unaware of Pesach is okay, and also the one that doesn't...
Why is he okay? Why is he okay? It's sad.
Not okay, I'm saying like it makes sense as part of the fifth child.
Aha.
Why is the fact that doesn't care part of the fifth child if that is also a Rasha?
Because the Rasha is there, he's arguing, he's fighting, he's there for the wrong reasons in order to make a statement. He's there to make a statement, he's fighting and arguing. At least he's there. Right? It's like the Rahman Islam, the Jews out there who are, protesting, pro-Hamas, kind of thing. Right? It's like all those Jews they're not, at least they're there. They're wrong. They need to be educated and brought in, but there's something there. They're still affiliating. Right? They're completely idiotic, But there's something there. There's still a passion over there. You have to channel that. But they're present. They're present. They're fighting and arguing. That's what it represents. That is, they're present. When you have the person who doesn't, I'm not Jewish, what are you going to do with that? There's nothing there. It's just empty. It's void. So the rebel you can do something with, you can channel it. When someone comes and starts arguing with me, I'm like, we have a chance for something. If someone doesn't talk to me at all, I don't see them, then there's no chance of bringing them back. I think that's the idea. I think, yeah.
I was just thinking, to me, it sounds like it'd be easier for somebody who doesn't know anything and doesn't, like, let's say they're unaffiliated because they don't know anything. You know, they're in the middle.
Yeah.
You can persuade them either way.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody that's completely on the other side, they're not even open to hearing another opinion.
Right, they just...
Worse to me than being unaffiliated.
Yeah. So the unaffiliated are not present. Once you get them present, there's no doubt about it, there's more of a chance you can have an impact upon them. There's no doubt about it. The unaffiliated, unengaged person, you're right. It's just how you're going to get them. How you're going to get them. I happen to agree with you, by the way. I happen to agree with you. You get a lot more mileage from those individuals when they come in without anything, without any preconceived notions, preconceived cynicism. I agree with you. I agree with you. Maybe that's why he says, go get them. We need them. Yeah? Yeah?
I think also it's like whenever you're less affiliated, your neshama is more like sensitive to inspiration. And like whenever you hear something that's like inspiring or like a covenant or like something like that, like very touching, you're more sensitive to it than like.
So you're more open and receptive, you're saying, as a fifth child to come in and actually get involved. I mean, I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I really do. I mean, over my years of working as a rabbi, I've seen many such individuals change their lives around, but it takes a lot, It takes a lot to get them in and get them involved and even figure out if they're Jewish. Okay, so those are your 4 children, and those are your 4 understandings of, yes?
What's the difference between the tam and the Yoda Lishon?
So what's the difference between the tam and the lishon? The tam at least is aware. There's a certain aware, there's an understanding. A little bit, they understand what's going on. Right? You know what it's like? This is how I see it. It's those kids who went to Hebrew school, till they were like 10. You know what I'm saying? You know those kids? That's most kids out there, unfortunately. Right? Most kids. They walk around it, I remember my rabbi, my great-grandpa. They always had some Israeli teacher, used to be teaching them in school, smoking cigarettes, arguing, shouting. Always had some Israeli woman, teach them on a Sunday morning. All the friends are doing sports, doing that. Most have memories. Some of them are not fond memories, because who'd rather sit in a school on a Sunday morning, right, learning Judaism rather than playing sports with their friends, you know what I'm saying? But there's something there. So the tam already, there's a chush, there's something going on. They're just simple. They're simple. They have a little basis of knowledge. It's a little bit, something to, to ride on, I'm not putting those people down, by the way. I'm not putting them down. They, if you have a little bit there, you have a lot more to build on, right? Most Israelis, I think, are tam, right? Some are arguing and fighting, and some, but a lot of them are tam. They're like, I learned the Bible, the Torah in my school when I was a baby. They remember a little bit. They have a little chush. My father-in-law was like this. Didn't grow up particularly religious in Israel, right? But, he remembers, in my house, we used to clean the house for Pesach. Always. Why? That's what we did. Right? This is the way it was. Right? My mother grew up in it. Well, she was more religious, my mother. But this is the way it is. Like a little bit. Tam is a little bit there. They have a chush for it. This is good. There's something to build on. This is probably the best group, this tam. Because they have some fond memories and remembrances of their grandparents doing. They always talk about their grandparents, these people. These tam people always have a grandparent who did something. They always feel connected to a grand. I don't know if you understand this, but the tam, this kid who has a little bit, they went to some kind of Solomon Schechter school. Those were the best kids. The best kids I have didn't go to these yeshiva where they got turned off. They have or Jewish camp. Those kids go to Jewish daycare, they go to public school, but then some go to Jewish camp. They have a little bit of something, This is the tam. They know what a sukkah is, because at camp they built one. They know what a matzah is. They know, they saw it. Okay, the matzah was next to the bread on the Pesach Seder table. They have something, but it's not enough. But there's something here. There's something at least to build on. This person, you have to, really educate them. These are the people who, it's like I'm learning now with a wonderful guy, right? He's in his 40s, and he's learning how to read Hebrew. Oh my God, I got to sit with him. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. Every Tuesday morning, I sit with him. He spends the entire week working, preparing his Hebrew reading. It's fantastic, but it's got a lot to catch up on in his 40s. It's a kasher. It's difficult. That's the end of the list. He's like so far away, Although this guy probably is a tum, because he has Jewish experiences when he grew up, which Baruch Hashem were very, very positive. But there was some other grandparents. My grandfather was a big tzaddik, always, right? My grandma, you know what I'm talking about? Everyone's great-grandparents, grandparents. Oh, big tzaddik, always, yeah.
I think it's interesting that, everyone's, even still now, our grandparents and our great-grandparents, we lasted for centuries as, a people, but it only really takes 4 generations to...
100%. 4 generations finishes it off. If there's assimilation, now it's not always their fault. It could be pogroms, could be Holocaust, a lot of things that break that. Obviously, the idea is you want to turn yourself from a tam or Enodei Lishol back to a chacham to restart. You get yourself at least 4 years or 4 generations, 4 generations more than 4 generations of restarting the process. That's what you need. Right? You want to restart it. If you don't become a chacham, then and you got to make sure your kid is not a rasha. It's not a guarantee. Right? You can have a chacham who has a bigger chacham as a child. Which is good. Right? Actually, the last prophecy of the last prophet Malachi, says before Mashiach comes, you're going to have a generation where the kids know more than the parents. It's an upside down generation. Where children return their hearts to their parents.
Return their hearts?
Yes. Bringing them back. Return the hearts as a metaphor for bringing them back to Torah and Judaism. Wow. And we've had a whole generation of it. Now, it took a lot to get there. It took a lot of assimilation in America. It took a Holocaust, right? Expulsion of Sephardic Jews out of, But we got to a point where suddenly the children know more than the parents. It's an olam hafuch. It's upside down. It was never that way. It's always parents teaching kids. And now we have kids who know more than their parents. Well, for a lot of the kids, the parents today, they didn't get a full Jewish education, right? Because they were too busy, surviving, right? And paying for their kids to go instead. So the kids know more than the parents. Right? So that's they see. And Mashiach comes, it's going to turn. The whole thing's going to be turned on its head. It's olam hafuch. Okay, a lot more about that. We'll do that next semester. Okay, we're going to finish off Pesach today. Let's go. Page 82. So since the entire Haggadah is focused on children and make them ask questions, we said already, Rabbi Kiva used to give gifts. That's why you had gifts. You would steal the afikomen. Rabbi Tarfon used to do things to make kids engaged and involved. The focus of the Pesach Seder is for the children. Unless you don't have children, it's to the people there. And let's see, you're by yourself, says the Gemara, you say the questions yourself and answer them yourself. You basically read the Haggadah. Because now we have Haggadah to help us, right? Which wasn't always the case. People just used to talk. Now we have Haggadah. And that's why there's a custom, the Haggadah is not a prayer. You're not praying, you're not sitting there, but no. It's a story that needs to be spoken out to children. That's the idea of it. V'higarata lebincha. That's the idea. The idea is you're telling a story. And if you do not understand, if you only speak English, you don't speak Hebrew, then what's the point of reading the Haggadah only in Hebrew? It's stupid. So either get one of the translation, or do what the Khatam Sofer used to do. He would recite the entire Haggadah in 2 languages, Hebrew and German. Right? It's in Pressburg. What's the point of just reading it so the kids don't understand? You've got to engage the children. Okay? All right. Okay, the next piece we did earlier, these are just the sources. They have to see yourself as though you left Egypt. We said that already. So let's just, for the remaining time we have together, talk about the 15 steps of the Pesach Seder. The 15 steps of the Pesach Seder. Okay? Because your Pesach Seder has 15 steps. Let me start with a quick question. Why is it called a Seder?
Order.
Why do we call the order of the Pesach Seder the order? Do we see that anywhere else, really? Not so much, right? Sometimes, Tu B'Shvat Seder. But why do we call it Seder, which means order? That's the question. And actually, if you look at it, say the rabbis, there is no order in the Pesach Seder. The whole thing is out of order. I don't mean chronologically, I mean the order of this world. Seder means things are musudar. What is musudar? Organized. If you look at the story of Mitzrayim, it's very unorganized. We have plagues, we have blood and frogs, we have the whole thing is olam hafuch, the whole thing is upside down. It's literally the opposite of order. The whole thing is a massive, disorderly, miraculous group of events that led to the exodus from Egypt. Right? Order means things are going according to the order of this world. We see that the story is actually the exact opposite. Everything is hafuch, everything is upside down. It's completely disorderly. The rules of this world do not apply anymore. So one of my teachers said this many years ago, and it stayed in my head. He said, the order for the Jewish people, the order in general, is the miraculous. That is the order. Is the miraculous. That's what makes order for us. The order for us, usually we say things are beseder, they're just following a natural flow of events. But the Pesach Seder story is completely disorganized. It's like frogs flying everywhere, blood, right? Kinim, wild animals. The whole thing is miraculous. Splitting of the sea, Korban Pesach, Matan Torah. So he said that is the order for the Jewish people throughout world history, is when things do not follow the correct order of natural events. That is our order. That's how he explained it to me. Yeah, Maya.
I have a question about the Seder itself also. So in the Seder, there's a lot of symbols that do like for freedom, like for slavery.
Yeah.
But why are the symbols, like if we went from slavery to freedom, why are the symbols in the Seder not, like why aren't all the symbols for slavery in the beginning and all the symbols for freedom at the end? Like why is it mixed up?
You're asking why are the symbols different for slavery, which is the beginning of the Seder, as opposed to the Geula, the Exodus, at the end of the Seder, you're saying? It's different symbols.
No, like why are there, like you know how you like drink wine or like beginning like for freedom?
Yeah.
And then,
We drink wine to represent the four freedoms. Yeah, we spoke about that. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's like other symbols that we do for slavery.
Yeah.
Like why is there not an order for those symbols either if we went from slavery to freedom?
Give me an example. I don't understand what you're saying. Give me an example of where the same symbol represents slavery and freedom.
No, that's not what I mean. Like I'm saying there's some symbols for freedom and there's some symbols for
Such as what?
like eating the bitter
We eat the maror to remember the bitter times. Yeah.
or like matzah, like
Well, matzah actually represents both. We eat matzah at the beginning because that was slave food. It's quick to make, easy, cheap. So you want to feed your slaves the easiest, non-tastiest food. That's why it's called lechem oni. The same matzah, however, when we eat it as the afikomen, represents geula, freedom. So that's a better question. Why is it that the matzah represents avdut? That was in the video I just sent you. You didn't watch the video I sent you? Wow. Wow. That's great. I sent it today? I don't know. I didn't send it to this chat?
No, you didn't.
I did.
Thank you, Sarah.
I get confused.
I can see that because I did. Let's go through the 15 steps. Let's see what comes up and let's see why. But the reason why the same matter represents slavery, avdut, and chirut is really to do with the broken matzah in the middle. It's the breaking aspect. Let's go through it. Let's see if we'll find it. Okay, let's start with number 15 first. What does number 15 represent? Did we discuss this yet? Okay, so number 15 is a very important number that appears a number of times, not too many times, but a bunch of times that I know of. What does 15 always represent? We know what 1 represents. 1 is Hashem, right? 2, right? We know that's 2 luchot, okay? It's 2 represent.
Love that song. It's so good. Why do
So
we
what does
sing that?
15 represent? What?
Why do we sing that on Pesach? Because it's a banger.
It's really a summary of all of Judaism. It's a very deep, deep song, by the way. It's not just a song, very, very deep ideas there of how each number represents a different part of Jewish history to number us all.
Can we have a class where we talk about the different songs and prayers?
I wish I could in this class, but I don't have time. I have to get to the Omer, Shavuot, and Tisha B'Av, right, before summer. We have a lot to get through. Okay, let's start with 15. What does 15 represent? Where do we see 15 in anywhere in life? Yeah.
Like ascending.
Where'd you get that from?
Like the 15 steps.
Oh, very good. How'd you know that?
7 a.m.
There were 15 steps, right, to go up, aliyah, into the Bet HaMikdash. Into the Bet HaMikdash. What would be on these 15 steps?
Stairs.
There were 15 steps, yeah, that's what they are. Yeah, but what was on them?
Gold.
No. Kohanim, Leviim, playing instruments, singing on the 15 steps. And what would they be singing? 15 songs. What 15 songs? What 15 songs do we have that come together? Very good. What are they called? Tehillim? The 15 Shir HaMa'alot songs. There's 15 psalms of King David that are called the Shir HaMa'alot, right? And they would stand on the 15 steps and they would go inside listening to music, singing these 15 psalms of King David that were called the Shir HaMa'alot. So we're starting to see that 15 is going to represent going up. It's connected to reaching a destination. So it isn't the destination itself, right? It's the journey to the destination. Nachon? Which name of God represents 15? Is represented by 15? Yud and Hey. Right? Yud and a Hey. That's 15. Yud is 10. Hey is 5. Is that Hashem's name? Not his full name. It's one of his names. But the full name is Yud Hey with a Vav and a Hey. So you're halfway there. You're not there, but you're on your way. Any other 15s? Any other 15s? There are actually, right after you say the Shema, there are 15 words that start with the letter Vav that connect the Shema to the Amidah. We go from Geula to Tefillah. That's the connection from the Shema. That's why you shouldn't interrupt between Shema and the Amidah. You don't make a hefsek from Geula, the Geula of the Shema talks about, you see in Mitzrayim, and Tefillah, which is the Amidah. There happen to be 15 words that have the letter Vav. Have the letter Vav that start those words. Really, what you should do is you should say them, say them out, loud. And many Sidurim, they will print them larger. The word Vav actually, the letter Vav, when spelt out, is like this. Vav, Vav. What's a Vav in Hebrew? It's a hook. It's a hook. Vavim are hooks. Because the word and is Vav, and the word and hooks the different words together. And this, and that. You're making a kesher between them, right? So you got 15 that take you from Shema, from Geula to Amidah Tefillah. Meaning, 15 always represents the journey to take you to a higher place, but it's not the place itself. The 15 steps were not the Beit HaMikdash. These 15 words in between Shema, they aren't the prayer itself. They're the way to get there. They are the journey. So 15 always represents take you from point A to point B. Point A to point B. There are 15 words that start with the letter Vav between the Shema and the Amidah. Right out of the Shema. Each of them has a Vav. It means they're all connected. Vav, 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 Vav. Okay? So the idea of 15 is it's going to take me to a higher place. So the Pesach Seder, these 15 steps, we know you got to do all 15. You can't stop after 10. All right? They finish the meal and okay, enough. I have my chicken soup, let's go to bed. No, it's not the way it works. You got to do all 15 steps. Halel, nirtzah. You got to finish it off. Kadesh, Rachatz, Kapatz, Yachatz, Magid, Rasam, Mosim, Asa. Morocco, Rosh Hashanah, Safan, Baruch, Halel, nirtzah. Need all 15 steps. Yeah.
So 15 represents not completion.
Yeah.
Then how come there's 15 steps and then we're over with the Seder?
Oh, because you reached the point. Then you arrive, and that's it. You've reached your full Geula. You've now, meaning I've done 15, I'm there. I've done my 15, I'm there. I've done it. I do my 15 steps, I'm in the Beit HaMikdash. I'm free. You need all 15 to go free. 5 is not enough. 8 is not enough. You need all 15. So let's run through all 15. Okay? Kadesh. So Kadesh is the first of the 4 cups. Let's just run through some of the halachot as we go through. We're on page 84. We're going to run through the 15 steps. The first cup, right, the 4 cups of wine, the dalet kosot, the first one has a double purpose. It's the first of the 4 cups, and you make kiddush, you makadesh et hayom. You have to say this at night time. It's at night time, because that's when Pesach begins. So you have to wait till Seder Kochavim, till the stars come out. You make the first one. Sephardim, Ashkenazim have different minhagim. Sephardim make the bracha Borei Pri Gefen on the first cup and the third, not the second and the fourth. Ashkenazim make a Borei Pri Gefen on all 4. Really, the way we always do it is you make one bracha Borei Pri Gefen, and then during the meal, do you make another bracha if you drink wine again? No. You do over here if you're Ashkenazi. Sephardim do not. They're like, what are you talking about? After the second, I say Bechat HaMazon, that's a hefsek, that stops it, that completes it, and I start again. Right? After Birkat HaMazon. So the first and third makes sense because Birkat HaMazon made a separation between them. So 1 is a bracha and 3 is a bracha, but that's it. Ashkenazim, maybe it's based on the idea of Manishtan Al-Azeh. We do things very, very different. And each one of these statements of Geula is so important, each one warrants its own Bria Pri Gefen. That's not the way you do it the rest of the year. No one does that at all the rest of the year. It just doesn't exist. It's different for Pesach. Yeah?
So Sephardim make a bracha on 1 and 3 because they say
Because during a meal, if you have the same wine again, you don't usually make another bracha. So the bracha of the first Borei Pri Gefen covers the second cup of wine. So the first covers the second. Then comes Birkat HaMazon, which closes off that eating period. And now I have to make a new bracha. Once you bench, you say Birkat HaMazon, you're done. You have to start again. So you make a bracha on the third, and then you don't make a bracha on the 4th. So if you look inside the Ashkenazi Haggadot, it will say, any Ashkenazim here? Right? You make a bracha on each one, correct? But not Sephardim. Sephardim only make a bracha on the 1st and the 3rd. Got it? That's going to be the minhag. Yeah.
Wait, so do Ashkenazim say Allah Gefen after each?
Yes, they do. No, they don't. And that's the weird thing. They don't. They just continue. Very strange.
Oh, so they only say it once?
They say what once?
Wait, I'm confused. I thought you said they make 4 bracha on.
They make a bracha Borei Pri Gefen on each cup of wine.
Then why do you just say they don't make?
Because she's saying al hagefen, which is the bracha afterwards. She's saying, well, maybe they close off the first Borei Pri Gefen, making al hagefen, right? When you drink a lot of wine, you make a bracha to conclude that. I'm saying I don't do that either. Ashkenazim just drink first, second, third, and each one they make a bracha Borei Pri Gefen, right? You're asking al hagefen, the concluding bracha. They don't close it off. They just make another bracha. Weird, right? It's very interesting. Well, it's not done the entire year. Even Ashkenazim would never do that during the year. Yeah.
So during Kaddish, do they fill the cup, they don't make a bracha, they drink it?
They drink it. They make a who?
They make a bracha without drinking? Ashkenazim.
They drink each cup of wine. Each cup of wine must be full, must be at least 3.5 ounces. But you're meant to do is drink the entire cup. And ideally it should be red wine. Okay? That's more chashuv. Red wine is more important than white wine.
But do they make a bracha on it?
They make a bracha and they drink each cup.
Are women obligated in this?
Women are obligated in all, we said this already, in every single mitzvah of Pesach. The dalet kosot, the matzah, the haggadah, the maror, same way as men, because they were also freed from Mitzrayim. So even though it's a mitzvah, shazman gramad, it is a mitzvah that is time-bound, they are still obligated in every single mitzvah of Pesach. Hallel, mitabracha. Yes, you don't make a bracha on Hallel? 100% they do. For this they do.
Like done
You're going to this year, Rachel Tavazo, they make a bracha. As far as I know, 100%, you're going to say full Hallel. You say full Hallel, make a bracha. Women make a bracha on Hallel. I don't see why they wouldn't. Unless you see differently in your Sephardi Haggadot. I've never seen anything different. You're going to say a full Hallel. You say a bracha. I don't see why not.
What if I like listen to other people saying halal and I just say amen? Mayotze. I don't know how to say all halal. It's gonna take me 3 hours.
Then do it in English.
Really?
Yep.
Wait, how much again the cup has to be?
At least 3.5 ounces. But the trick is, 3.5. That's lefachot. Usually it should be like 5 or 6 ounces. But don't get a massive cup, because really when it comes to Pesach, unlike another holiday, usually a regular Shabbat, you just drink a malol lugmav, like a cheek full, you're good to go. On Pesach, you may actually drink the entire cup. So don't use a massive cup. Save that for the koshel leo. Yeah.
Is saying a bracha or anything in English, or like a tefillah in English, because you understand?
If you understand it, it does work. Yeah, it
So,
does work.
What's better, if you say it in Hebrew and don't understand it, or say it in
Better
English?
to say in Hebrew, not understand it.
Really?
Yep. That we know for sure, because Hebrew has a certain nuances that the translation does not have. But Pesach Seder you should understand, because it's a story. So there you can read it in English. You asked me about a general bracha or tefillah. That's better in Hebrew. But the Pesach Haggadah is a story. Better to understand a story in your language. So let someone else read in Hebrew, and you follow in the English. So when it comes to this, Haley, you want to read it in English, you understand what's going on. That's a better way to do it.
Like fully?
Yeah, I mean, try to get some bits in Hebrew, right? At least the brachot say in Hebrew, right? Because they are the tefillah parts. But really, it's a story, right? Otherwise, what are you doing? Okay, so that's Kadesh, and that's 1 cup, at least 3.5 ounces. You have to down it completely. If it's too much, drink grape juice. Red grape juice, ideally. Urchatz.
Wait,
Yes.
why is red better than white?
One reason is that red reminds us of the blood that was spilled during that time. But red, yain adom, has more chashivut. It's considered more important. You'll see certain references in Tanakh to red wine being a more important chashuv kind of wine. Okay? Urchatz. Urchatz is to wash our hands. Why are we washing our hands? Why are we washing our hands?
To ask people, so people would ask, why are you washing your hands?
So what's the answer? Yeah, what's the answer? There's
Because
got to be an answer.
tonight's different than the other nights.
But why here? Why not wash your hands before or after? What's about to happen right after this? Yeah? Got to pass. Right? So it used to be in the times of the Beit HaMikdash, when before they eat vegetables, they used to wash their hands for eating vegetables. There was a level of tumah that they actually wash their hands for eating vegetables, wet vegetables. You're about to wet the karpas by dipping it in salt water. Okay? By dipping it in salt water. So in order to prepare for that, you wash your hands. Normally we don't do that during the year. We just wash our hands before bread. It was limited to bread. It used to be, so in order to remember the Beit HaMikdash, and God willing the future Beit HaMikdash, we do wash our hands. But we do not make a bracha. So you just wash. It's a regular washing. All right? You can't use a pitcher with a lip on top. It has to be a regular cup, and you have to use a regular amount. The way you normally wash for bread, you wash for karpas. Okay? You wash, if you're Ashkenazi, you go 2 each hand. If you're Sephardi, you do 3 each hand. You don't talk. Right? And then you go straight to the karpas. What's the karpas? What's the karpas? What is it?
Salt water?
No. What is the karpas?
I thought it was parsley.
Parsley? Celery? What do you use, Rachel?
Parsley.
You shouldn't.
What?
You should use celery. Parsley works. Any root vegetable works, actually.
Beets.
I don't think people use beets for karpas. I've never seen that. May work. Really, you should use celery. Why, Rachel? How do you say celery in Persian? What? I thought you're Persian. You don't know?
How do you?
Karafs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Karafs is karpas. That's where it comes from. It's actually not even Hebrew, most likely. Karafs. Got it, Rachel? Karafs, karpas is celery, right? I don't know, I'm teaching her Persian. She's from Great Neck and I'm not, but there you go. That's how life works sometimes, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. But any root vegetable works. So what do people use? You use probably like a salad. Parsley works. What do people use? People use potato. Right, potato, anyone use potato? right? Do you know why they use potato? Do you know why they use potato? Because back in Europe, that's all they had. Well, there was a potato. You're the potato people.
So it's a Hungarian thing?
It's an Ashkenazic thing. Ashkenazic thing, yeah. Right, that works. Ruvet, the idea is that we started as under the ground and we come out. That's the idea. But how much do you eat? So many people get very, very excited that, oh, they're starving. Spend all this time talking and schmoozing and reading. You take a little, it has to be less than a kazait because you cannot make an after bracha. Because you're going to need this bracha of hadama to cover the maror. The maror. The breper dama. So you've got to have a very small amount. I know you want to stuff your face with tons of celery or whatever. No. It's literally a tiny amount. Pachod mikazayit. Less than a little tiny amount is what you're meant to have. I know you want to fill it up, but no. And you dip it into salt water to represent the tears that were shed by the Jewish people during our Avdut. Yachatz, a very important part. You have 3 matzot on the table. 3 matzot. Why do we have 3 matzot? Why 3? So we
could split one.
So we can split one. So why can't you have 2 and split one? Because you need 2 for motzi. So if you look at it, you basically have what's coming up in a few minutes is motzi matzah. Motzi matzah. Why has it got 2 names? Because motzi is hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Matzah is the mitzvah of alachil matzah. You're going to make 2 brachot, right? Motzi matzah. So the first bracha covers the su'udah of Pesach. You need lechem mishnah, right? You need 2 loaves, or in this case, 2 matzot. Are you with me? So you're going to take these 2, but you need lechem. Before you make the bracha, you've already broken one. What's that called? Yachatz. You already broke them. The bigger piece becomes the afikomen. The smaller one you're going to use for the mitzvah of al-chil matzah. So why do we have 3 matzot? Because you need 2 for the meal, and one's already broken, the middle one. Are you following, friends? Yeah, you got it? If you're not, ask me, yeah.
What does motzi literally translate
To take out. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Hashem takes out the bread. So that is the bracha on eating your 2 loaves of bread, your lechem mishnah on Shabbat and Yom Tov. So you have to have 2. But you broke 1. Yeah, because I need that to make another point. That's the yachas. This represents the breaking of the Jewish people. And which piece becomes the afikomen? Bigger piece, because it represents olam haba. Okay? So the smaller piece stays inside. The bigger piece becomes the afikomen. Okay. The Jewish people got broken. They were shavur, right? They were. It's called lechem oni. Lechem oni means poor man's bread. Why is it lechem oni? What? Because a poor person doesn't have a whole loaf. They don't eat a whole loaf. They break it up into pieces to save some for the future. So the beginning of the Pesach Seder is lechem oni. It's poor person's bread, because we're poor, right? We're broken. Yep. Actually, in the schus of us being broken, we got out because we prayed to Hashem. So that's that. Let's finish off. We've got to finish off. Stick with me. Then we do Magid. Magid is Haggadah, reading Haggadah. This is Rachsa. This is the proper washing for the bread. This is the Lechem Mishnah. We're going to Rachsa. We're going to wash our hands. Magid is basically reading the entire story. V'higeret ala bincha. We spoke about that. Rachsa is washing your hands with a vessel 3 times each side with a bracha. Then Motzi, Motzi lechem min haaretz. And then Matzah, another bracha of al chilul matzah. You're going to make both brachot. They cover the Motzi and the mitzvah of al chilul matzah. Watch the video in slow motion. Maror. Maror is bitter herbs. You can use anything. Most people use romaine lettuce, right? Because the more you chew on it, the more bitter it becomes. It reminds us that things got worse and worse and worse. Some people use horseradish. If you do, you need to have a wine which gets into your nose. And my father-in-law, Erev Pesach, is grinding that with goggles on.
What?
Right, that's very, very sharp. But you need to have a kazayit of that. So if you're going to have it, you've got to have a shot glass worth. Just warning us a lot. Korech is they used to make a sandwich. They would fold it and make a sandwich. Kahilel hazaken, because he used to have matzah amora yochluhu. He follows the Torah's exact prescription of eating matzah and maror together. Okay, yeah.
Why is it that all the things on the plate, why are they all shot past? Like that's just something we all do, but why?
Okay, so the kara you don't eat, just look at it. what you need to eat. You can have less, just as a remembrance, because when you finish, in order to consider drinking or eating, it needs to be at least a shot glass, kazayit. It's called a kazayit. That's what you're going for, that minimum amount, considered to be eating. Yeah? So matzah has to be a kazayit, yeah.
When was the Haggadah created? Who created it? Because it talks about different rabbis.
Yeah.
In it.
Okay, very good. We're not too sure who authored it. It wasn't one person, it was a number of people written over time. The Bal Haggadah is referred to, but it refers to a lot of people over time. It spans, but it was written at the time of the second Beit HaMikdash, right? Because it talks about events that happened at the end of the second Beit HaMikdash, right? Rabbi Akiva occurred, he lived at the end of the second Beit HaMikdash. So it was written by, that means it was written by people who had, real, they're part of the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, most likely, right? The final show. Okay, Tzafun refers to hidden, that refers to Olam Haba, it's hidden from us, and the Afikomen represents that because it's hidden away. And the Birchat HaMazon is number 13. Followed by Hallel, we sing because now we're free, and we drink, we say Hallel over a cup of wine with a bracha, the entire Hallel, and then Nirtzah, we conclude with the end of it, basically. And over there on part C, you just have a look, there is your Seder plate. Okay? You're welcome.